Hi, welcome to this week's Spotlight. I'm Mary.
And I'm Alina.
And we're from Women's March Minnesota. And today we're in Minneapolis to find out more about a non-profit called Rise. This is a Facebook Live interview, so if at any point you have any questions that you want to ask, please write them, send a message to us and we'll include them in the interview.
And we will be interviewing Executive Director of Rise, Reviving the Islamic Sisterhood for Empowerment, with Naushina Ali Hussein, the Executive Director.
So we're going to turn the camera around to Naushina so that we can continue the conversation. So, Naushina, tell us about why you set Rise up.
Yep, so probably in 2015, I used to work for another nonprofit organization called the Council on American Islamic Relations Minnesota, and I did a lot of development work for them around raising funds for the nonprofit, and of course that's got a lot of challenges, but as I would do outreach and work within the community, I would always notice that there was a lack of female leadership from the Muslim women's side. I also noticed that there was sort of a gap in the participation of what they do in the community as well as in civic engagement. And then I also noticed that from a very a philanthropic point of view, we're really great at being charitable and giving donations, big hearts, but there wasn't really a unique model to address some of the issues that our community is facing at the root cause. And so I wanted to sort of combine these three things and be able to make change in our community with the power of Muslim women and through sort of that philanthropic point of view.
And so tell us about the name. Why did you choose the name Rise? What does it mean?
Well, the more I would go out into the community and the more that I would interact with Muslim sisters, what I started to learn was that there were a lot of amazing women doing a lot of amazing work, but we're going unnoticed. So we like to always be behind the scenes, behind the camera, but rarely are we sort of up front. And another thing that was brought to my attention was that Muslim women just didn't feel connected. Like there wasn't a platform or a safe space for them to be able to connect with one another, learn about each other's work, or be able to really, have that bond of sisterhood to get work done. And so we thought, well, we've got sisterhood, we want to connect women, we want to sort of build up some of the things that they're doing. So the name sort of came out of Reviving an Islamic Sisterhood for Empowerment, Rise, and the acronym really fits the things that we're trying to do, because when Muslim women want something and they step up, they show up big time.
So can you tell us a bit about the community that you serve?
So it is the Muslim community within Minnesota. We started off with the Twin Cities, and of course we've already gotten lots of feedback and requests, in places like St. Cloud and Rochester and even South Dakota. So we primarily operate out of the Twin Cities. We want to focus here, sort of build the base and kind of move out. But it is towards the Muslim women. We are building a network of sisters within this community. And many don't realize this, but Muslims aren't a very monolithic community. They're very diverse. We span all races and ethnicities, speaking different languages. Some are immigrants, some are refugees, Americans, new Americans. We've had different age groups, everybody from like retirement age all the way down to college and high school. So it's very diverse, and so to be able to service everyone has been somewhat of a challenge, but also an opportunity because of the growth that we're seeing.
And so when you were talking about your organization, you said there were 3 different areas that you work in. Can you tell us a bit more about those areas and then the kinds of things that you're doing in those areas?
Sure. So Rise's mission is to amplify the voice and power of Muslim women, and the 3 focus areas that we have are around leadership development, community engagement, and philanthropy. So with leadership development, it's helping women sort of gain the skills that they need to be able to step out and show up in their community. So if they are trained on things like public speaking or networking or how to tell their story, how to read balance sheets and financial statements, things like that, then they're much more confident and they're able to engage within their communities. And so that's where our next focus area is around getting them involved within their communities. We actually first started off thinking that we would be focusing on some of the Islamic organizations and mosques within this state, but quickly realized that Muslim women weren't as interested. They actually wanted to be more involved within government, like school boards and cities and elections and state government and things like that. So we've really shifted gears on providing trainings and opportunities for them to be able to engage within all sectors of the government. And then philanthropy is really helping women, Muslim women especially, be able to understand what is philanthropy and how to have more sustainability and accountability in the giving that they, the donations that they provide to the community. So they're very educated women. I mean, lots of corporate heads and affluent women, and we want to help them be able to take the money that they donate and have sort of an influence over the things that they want changed. So to be able to partner with organizations on creating that change and being part of the change. So we're hoping to train women on understanding how giving is done and to be able to provide a Muslim woman's perspective in the way giving is done and be able to serve on in different capacities of where giving is happening, whether it's at a foundation, a grant maker, or within their own mosque.
So can you give us examples of some of the things that how you do that?
Sure.
Work?
Well, the best examples I like giving is around the civic engagement work. So we hosted a panel back, I think in February of 2016, and we had 3 women from the community come and speak to us about civic engagement. One was Dr. Hala As-Samarai, who is a school board member in Columbia Heights. We had Ilhan Omar, Representative Omar. At that time, she was a candidate, so she came in to talk about her campaign and why she decided to run. And then we had Asma Nizami, who was, really fresh out of college, got her first job, and she's been working with different elected officials on their campaigns as well. And she's been a part of different movements within the Twin Cities. So we wanted Muslim women to be able to see other women like themselves who are trying to balance, or what they called juggle, work and life and family along with their faith, and how they're doing it and why they're doing it. Because I always go back to the saying of how can I be what I cannot see? And so if I don't see people that look like me, then why would I want to aspire to engage in different ways? And so from that panelists, we quickly learned about caucusing and what is a caucus. And quite frankly, most of us had never been to a caucus, including myself. And so the next step from that panelist session was to have a caucus training. And so we trained women on what to expect at the caucus. What happens? You cast a vote, and then what? There's resolutions, and then what? People get elected to become delegates. So demystifying the process helps people engage better, because when I understand something, then I will want to be more a part of it. So from caucus, we went to delegate training, because now women went to caucus, and amazingly, they didn't just cast a vote and walk out. First of all, they walked in with their spouses or their parents or their voting eligible children. And so this power that women have is that they always bring others along. And so that really amplifies the work that we're doing. And while they're there, you know, they casted their vote, but also they stepped up and became like chairs of their of their district, of their precincts. Some brought resolutions and like proposed them, and then others went on to become Senate district delegates. And so we thought, okay, well, let's go to the next level and provide delegate training. And so from delegate training, we saw people go and become state delegates, and then even move on to become delegates within the DNC. And then from that, we also had a call out to Muslim women to become election judges for the 2016 election cycle. And there was a particular sort of goal we were trying to accomplish with that, which was not just about, you know, go perform your civic duty, but like help people understand that Muslim Americans are just like everybody else, that they're here, they're your neighbors. Go and be a judge within your neighborhood, at your precinct, and let your neighbors see you there. Because when people come in to vote and they see you, that's going to mess up their frame a little bit, right, of who is an American and who is a Muslim. And so we were excited to see how many Muslim women actually did become election judges. And we did a lot of get out the vote work. We had women vote in primaries. Lots of people don't vote in primaries, regardless of gender or faith or ethnicity. But with primaries, we were like, okay, it's not just about the presidential election. We have to vote down this ballot. And so people got more excited about understanding, well, who's running for state and what's their platform, and who's running for city and city council, and what do they stand for? And so it was really exciting to see like the level of involvement and engagement, because all we're doing is helping sort of plug people into these opportunities. And now we're doing a lot with, you know, after election is around building relationships with the elected officials. And so getting women to go out and do, you know, advocate at lobby days, pick issues that concern them, and then be able to call on their elected officials, asking them what's their stance, what are they doing with this policy, or what are they doing with this bill or this budget. And so the more we activate, the more like others keep coming along. So civic engagement, I never really thought like we would be in it this deep, but it's been pretty exciting.
And how have things changed? Has the direction that you're going in, the areas that you're focusing on, changed since the new administration?
I would say yes. I think that's for everyone, that's probably a big yes. I think we were very comfortable sort of in our, you know, bubbles, but some of these executive orders that have come out are directly impacting members of our community, whether it's an immigration ban, whether it's things around deportation. The community is very on high alert. We have members of the community who have family members that they're afraid to travel. Some don't know if they'll be able, like students aren't sure if they're going to be able to see their family overseas. So because of these types of things that are happening, there's a lot more focus on building relationships and power in terms of working with those that are in office so that they understand our perspective. A really good example of this, Marie, is that we've been partnering with Protect Minnesota around Interfaith Alliance for Gun Violence Prevention. And this is a topic that probably perhaps some of the Muslim community doesn't really see themselves in that story. But we don't realize how many of our lives are touched by gun violence. And when there are, you know, policies like Stand Your Guard that are introduced where if you, as a gun owner, feel threatened by me, somebody that looks like me, then you have every right to pull out your weapon and use it on me. You're allowed to shoot me, and the innocence would be on you versus me. And so this is a very scary bill, very scary thing that they're trying to pass. And so when Muslims see this or understand this bill better, then they realize, oh, I need to be, you know, advocating for my community and myself, protecting ourselves from that. And you know, nobody's trying to take away Second Amendment rights or anything like that, but like if there are policies in place that could jeopardize the safety of yourself or your family members or anybody that looks like you, then you need to like voice that concern.
So what is RISE doing about that specific issue?
So there was a gun violence prevention lobby day 2 weeks ago with Protect Minnesota and a couple of different religious organizations, and so we participated in a training where they helped us understand what were the different bills that were there, and then we joined them on a lobby day and spoke with our congresswomen, mine's a congresswoman, and senators about these bills and asked for support in terms of making sure these don't get through committees and make it to the floor. And so we had to like really be able to articulate that perspective and how these types of bills affect our community personally.
What about you have these new initiatives that you're running at the moment. One is Sheroes?
Yes, so one of the things that we are trying to do is we call it sort of taking back the narrative, or changing the narrative or perspective that people have of Muslim women, because for so long others are telling our story, and so we wanted to highlight who we are by telling our stories ourselves. And so the more the more that we interacted with our community, the more we saw like some pretty amazing women who are change makers, trailblazers, really making an impact in the community, and nobody knows about the work that they're doing. So we thought, well, if we're building this platform, then we can shine a light on the work that they're doing. So we launched this campaign called Muslim Sheroes of Minnesota, and about depending on the timing, it's either once a month or sometimes twice a month that we showcase a Muslim woman from Minnesota that's doing really great work. And so we first started out with a blog. We partnered with an independent consultant with Imagine Deliver, Kate Khalid. She's an amazing writer, and hired a photographer, Hanan Wazwaz, and together they would go out and interview amazing women and then come back and tell their story. And so on our website, if you visit, there's a Sheroes tab on there, and we have right now 6 really great stories about women in there. And then we have a partnership with TPT, Twin Cities Public Television, and we're creating digital videos of some great women that are actually going to premiere on their channel, so that we can continue to work with this changing narrative idea, and really let people know like who Muslim women are. They're not the typical things that people think of, that they are really like profound, amazing, inspiring people. And so we're really excited about the work that we're doing there. And I should say that it's Blue Cross Blue Shield that is helping us be able to make that happen.
And then you have an event coming up. Can
Yes.
you tell us about that?
That event, which is not letting me sleep this week. We are having our inaugural Women's Leadership Conference. The conference was based off of some feedback that we received from women around gaining leadership skills. And some of these skills are public speaking, how to be able to tell your story, how to network, and also just an opportunity for women to kind of get to see each other in this venue. And so we are hosting it this Saturday at the Humphrey School at the University of Minnesota. It's an all-day conference, and our keynote speaker is Linda Sarsour, which a lot of people know, one of the co-organizers for the Women's March in DC. We're very excited about her coming. Originally the plan was that she was going to talk a lot more about leadership and like stepping up and showing up, but I think with so many things that have happened recently, she's, I think, going to have more of a call to action around organizing in this era and how to mobilize the community to be more engaged in their civic lives.
So you're talking a lot around the edge of how to deal with Islamophobia, basically, and I'm wondering if there are things that you could tell us ways that people who are listening to this, watching this, can help stem the tide of Islamophobia?
Yeah. You know, a couple weeks ago, we hosted a self-defense workshop. And this was in order to help Muslim women feel a little bit more confident about when they go out, in case they are harassed or attacked. And I feel like that's one part of the equation, is preparing Muslim women, but we really want our allies not to just be silent bystanders, but to actually use their privilege and power when things like this happen. So if you see any type of harassment, whether it is towards a Muslim woman or any other person of color or a marginalized community, then it's your job to step up and say something. And we're trying to figure out how to sort of encourage that behavior, because I think there is a moment of I don't know what to do, and a shock sort of settles in. But instead, how can we, help people, like, pull out your phone, call the police, start recording, write down things, go stand by the person who's being harassed. Sometimes small details, small steps like that can actually help. And that's one way I think we're asking people to sort of step up. But also, in order for people, I think the biggest problem with like Islamophobia is that people don't know Muslims, right? And when you don't know something, that's where like the fear starts and starts to grow too. So how can we as Muslims show up in more places and spaces? But we can't do that by ourselves, right? We need partners to be able to invite us to different platforms, to be able to show us as part of like the norm. So when you're doing a event, whether it's a conference or an open house or any sort of public community type event, think about broadening who comes to that, who you invite. Make an effort to reach out to communities that you normally wouldn't see at the table. Expand that table, right? Bring in more voices and more perspectives. I always commend those that do have a variety of people on their platforms, just so that you can see the diversity in our community, and that it's not an afterthought, that you are really having a cognizant understanding of that.
And in terms of supporting your organization, what are the specific things that you need help with?
Well, one is, I think, because we're so new, I mean, we were established last January, so we're going on like 14 months here. We want to continue growing our base. So, we have people we ask people to like us on our Facebook, follow us on Twitter, sign up for our e-newsletter, really like keep up with the work that we're doing and think about how does this work fit in with the work that you're doing. Sometimes it's overwhelming because I'm trying to grow this network of Muslim women. At the same time, I have all these great allies that are like, we want to partner with you, we want to do something with you. And so it's how do we find that sort of balance and be able to connect the two worlds. And they're not two worlds, but the two communities, I should say. So following us from social media is one way. Two is inviting us to be able to come speak, tell our stories. And three, always will be like support us by financially support us or volunteer with our organization. I think a lot of us have a lot of different skills, and those skills can be used for good, for nonprofit infrastructure work.
And are there any specific bills that you feel people should be aware of that are particularly threatening to your community?
Well, I mean, the executive order right now around not allowing people from 7 Muslim majority countries is probably the number one bill, executive order that is really disrupting normalcy in our communities. And we've asked, I mean, every Muslim has been like on the forefront of calling their elected officials, mailing things, emailing, writing postcards, and so are our allies. I mean, it's amazing to see the turnout that the Twin Cities or the state of Minnesota, I should say, has, especially since we have a lawsuit against that of being unconstitutional. So we know we're in the right state for that matter. Immigration, there's just this fear of like, if we're traveling, people are afraid, like they're going to be stopped by any sort of law enforcement. And so we've tried for the longest time to really build relationships with law enforcement, and now all of a sudden there's this fear of like, is law enforcement also doubling as ICE, and what does that mean? And people are asking, should we be walking around with copies of our passports? And no, that's that's unconstitutional. That's not necessary. So these bills, I think, are very problematic in our community right now.
And is there anything else that you want to cover about your organization, or?
Just that we're really growing, and one is we always want to grow from a Muslim women perspective, but that I think this year is going to be, we're starting to see ways of partnering with different allies, and so help us be able to create the space for a safe space with these women, and then help be sort of like good partners and collaborators in making our work go further. I'm not about reinventing the wheel. I really do appreciate collaborations, and I'm really humbled by the support that we've been receiving from everyone, regardless of faith. And so really just keep us in your thoughts and prayers, send us good vibes, and then follow us and keep up to date with the work that we're doing.
Can you just tell us the website?
Yes, the website is www.revivingsisterhood.org.
And may I post that?
Yes.
And I am not seeing any particular questions, but I did see someone post a website, risestronger.org. Is that, there's no affiliation, correct?
No.
Okay. I don't think so.
Although now I want to go check it out.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're done.
Oh,
So
great.
thank you very, very much.
Absolutely, it was
for
a
wonderful
pleasure.
interview.
Thank you, Noshina. That was really insightful and a good way for your allies to learn more about you and your organization.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.